Welcome back to Lessons from Learning Leaders. This is the show where we talk with learning leaders to learn more about what they do so we can grow along with them. Today we're talking about a critical shift in how we build high-performing teams. So if you want innovation, you need risk-taking. If you want risk-taking, you've got to have psychological safety. And that begins and ends with trust. But the old school corporate playbook on trust just isn't cutting it anymore. Our guest today has mapped out the exact blueprint for this shift. He's an Army veteran, being a Navy veteran. I won't hold that against you. You're a Bronze Star recipient, an executive coach, and president of the International Coaches Federation chapter in Houston. He's also the author of From Functional to Phenomenal and the creator of the 5 Why framework. He joins us to break down the core principles behind his high impact training, the new rules of trust, fueling innovation and engagement. Please welcome to the show, Jevon Wooden. Jevon, thanks for being here. Tell me your story, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dwayne. Honor and pleasure to share the stage with you, my man. So appreciate that. My story, real quick synopsis. So I didn't start out in the learning path. I feel like most learning professionals don't start out knowing that they're going to be in this route. So I grew up in Rochester, New York, very poor, and what that taught me was resilience first and foremost. But I ended up getting into a little bit of trouble at the age of 17, facing prison time. So sitting in a jail cell, I always say that's my first inflection point that I want to start with for 2 reasons. One is because it shows what happens when people believe in you, because you're going to hear the rest of my story. And 2, because it also shows that it really is not how you start, but what you decide to do with the lessons you learn. So by the grace of God, I did not have to do any of that prison time. The judge gave me a second chance and said, hey, I expect you to do better things with your life. And that showed me that monetary value was not the key, but I had a mind and a heart that I could use to leverage, which is how I started talking about trust and empathy and all these things that are called soft skills, but I like to say they're more foundational. So going forward, I ended up joining the military, as you said, the Army, which is, yes, go Army, beat Navy, which is how I got into technology. And technology taught me a little bit more about people than it did actually about technology, which is interesting. People are like, what? How did you go from that to learning? And what I learned is people are actually data too. We always think of data as ones and zeros, as some technical stuff, qualitative, quantitative, et cetera, et cetera. But people actually are data. They have behavioral patterns. They are known for certain tendencies. And once you kind of learn those, you start seeing what is the cause or catalyst for how things go. So that's why at ATD, I talked about the new rules of trust, because a lot of what we're seeing in the learning environment and organizations as a whole is coming from folks spending too much time focusing on the old rules, saying trust is a soft skill, trust is about an outcome, trust but verify, all these things we hear about. So I'm excited to get into this conversation a little bit more, Dwayne, because I feel like these conversations need to be had, especially right now.
Well, this is interesting because when you talk about the new rules, I'm wondering, is this because of a generational thing? Is it something we're seeing in culture? What do you mean by the new rules, and why do we need new rules to trust?
So it's not generational at all. It's just human. So we've gotten so far away from human centered anything. We like to say we are. We like to say in our cultures that we put people first. We do all these things, but when you actually break down the data of the humanity within these companies, there is a severe lack and gap of what trust is. So most folks, when they look at trust, they automatically assume that it's something that is given. It's there. If we can put it on our walls, we can put it on our placard, we can make it one of our core values. But then they have this micromanagement, hierarchy-driven type of decision-making plan or strategy. And that is just not how we can operate. So the new rules is more about trust being the foundation of everything. We always say trust is the foundation of a good relationship. It's the foundation of success in an organization as well. But trust has to be a verb. And this is one of the new rules. Trust has to be earned, showed daily. This is something that we see where organizations want to make sweeping changes, or they think that changing or adding the benefit is going to earn them some trust. It has to be done at every level in what I call micro moments. Instead of those macro moments. So micro moments could be as simple as making sure you don't move that one-on-one with your employee, ensuring that you're showing them that you want to hear them through feedback channels, and not just annual surveys, but actually giving them near real time where they have somewhere they can say, hey, I have a forum, I can share my ideas. Hey, you can tell me how you're implementing these, or say, we can't go this way. Here's why. The why is often missing as well, Dwayne. And that's a part of the new rules. And then there's also one about focusing on commitment rather than focusing on compliance. What we've been doing in the past is just looking at getting the thing done, not really caring or being concerned with what's happening with the person that has to do that role. So now we have to put the people first, literally, instead of just saying it, and make sure that we have their commitment. We're getting their discretionary effort. They're doing the work not because they feel like they have to, but because they want to.
There's something in there that you said that reminded me of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. When I've taught folks about sales, I've talked to them about the fact that you're not selling price as much as you think you are. It's not that something might be too much for them. It's just that they don't trust you and they don't know you. And the question is, are you going to solve their problem? The price might be completely secondary, but if they don't trust you, they're not going to buy from you, whatever it is, whether it's a new product, something they actually need, or just an idea that you're selling them. And Covey talked about the fact, and I love this idea from him, is trust can be like a bank account and you make small deposits over time. And then at the end of that, you have, a big bottom line. You have a fat bank account to draw from, but you can also lose that trust and you can lose that bank account in one mistake. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Yeah, in essence, but I don't like to look at it as a bank account, because then again we think about monetary and we think of tit for tat. We think of returns. Oh, is this person worth my trust? Now we start to think like that, rather than just understanding that humanity as is just a normal thing to do. It's the human thing to do. But how it looks is going to be different than rather if we say, hey, I want to build trust with this person. I want them to invest in my bank account or put some money in this. We're saying, hey, this person deserves to be treated like that. We need to hear them. We hired this person because we believe that they're excellent. We trust their skill set. We trust their perspectives. We value their opinion. So that's the little slight difference between what Covey says. I just don't want us to get so caught up in everything being tied to a monetary return, right?
It
So if we
seems like,
think about it as currency, that may be the case.
no, I get that. It seems like one of the things you're talking about also is just a matter of doing what you say you're going to do. If you're going to have an appointment this day, then have the appointment that day and realize that those small little, what might be small to you may be big to them. If
Absolutely.
you say we're going to meet on this day, you don't know what that person had to move around in order to make that happen or what they gave up. And for you to flippantly say, okay, we can't do that. You do that often enough, people are going to really be like, okay, whatever.
You're gonna lose them for sure. And also a component of this is understanding people's baselines. And what I mean by that is knowing exactly who you are talking to when it comes to building this trust. Everyone doesn't look at trust the same way. Every doesn't one doesn't value the same thing the same way, like you're saying, Dwayne. So some folks, when it talks about trust building, doing what you say you're gonna do, following through on the actions, etc. Other folks, they don't want like grand things. They may want a town hall acknowledgement and recognition, right? There are two things that really, really matter to people, and it has been this way for a while scientifically. It's meaningful work, right? Being challenged properly. That's a way to build trust. Handing them something, handing them a project, letting them run with it, letting them do it their way, not showing them the how, but telling them the why and the what and the when. And then there's also that recognition piece. So understanding who you need to recognize, how you need to challenge people, why they are there in the first place. That's where you're going to start with when it comes to building that trust. If I understand your why, then I know your fears, your drivers, your motivations, all of that stuff. And I can use that in my messaging to you. And another component of trust is communicating the way that person needs you to communicate to them. Oftentimes we feel that just because we are auditory or we're putting it in a PowerPoint that people are going to naturally get it. Not the case. So we have to ensure that everything we're doing is inclusive in building trust with all of our audience rather than just some of that audience. And I feel like that's one of the hardest components of what we're talking about here today. Because as leaders, you're at the top, you're like, I can't go one to one with every single person. Well, that's where delegation comes in. That's where the challenge of building that trust at all levels comes in, and then allowing them to filter it up to you. And having those meetings in places where you can get ideas from no matter if it's an analyst level all the way up to that person that direct report to you.
Are there any other rules of trust we need to talk about?
Yeah, vulnerability. Vulnerability is going to be key here. I know Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability. Uh, I talk about it because this is something that has helped me throughout my journey. I share a lot of my personal stuff. If you looked at my LinkedIn, you will see I talk about every single component of life because we also need to people to understand that we are just like them. Yes, we may be a different title or role or have different decision making capabilities, but we are just like them. So we have to connect on that level. So in order to do that as leaders, we have to also make sure that we not acting like we know everything. So saying I don't know can endear trust. Saying, hey, you know what? I would love to hear your perspective before I share mine can build trust. Those things that were once shown as weak as leader are now the things that we need to be doing more of. Because what happens when you do that is you open up and give others agency to share what's on their mind. And another component to being vulnerable is actually giving people projects you're not necessarily comfortable with giving them. So many folks are afraid of delegating because they're like, oh, if they don't do it my way, it may not get done well. But what we must do is we need to challenge ourselves to say, you know what? I don't feel all the way comfortable with this, but I'm going to give this person a component of this because I need them to be prepared for this next level that I see them at. I need them to be prepared. So just giving them a little bit and then checking in with them and following up and having the components like, hey, are you good? Do you have all the clear instructions on what you need to do? Great. I need this by this day. Come back to me if you need help. That allows them to see like, hey, I want you to be successful. This is not about me. This is not about me looking good. If you look good, I look good, right? I want you to understand that we are building this thing together. And that's that disconnect that we often see is often because leaders do not want to do that.
It reminds me of something that I've heard Sadiq Love talk about in his master facilitator training. One of his lines that is one of my favorites that he said. I try to apply it as often as I can, and he said that great facilitators will give up control for contribution. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying, look, sometimes we have to let go of these things and put ourselves in what might be an uncomfortable situation in order to give those who report to us or work with us the opportunities to grow, to make mistakes, to learn, to apply what they know that we may not have ever thought of.
Absolutely. That's where innovation comes from, right, Dwayne? Like innovation comes from us being willing to fail forward and do things we have not done before in different ways. And that can't come from just one mind or one group of people. It has to come from all people, people with varied experiences, diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of looking at things and solutions and problems. So we have to make space and room for that. And when I talked about the new rules of trust, it was about fueling engagement and innovation. And one of the keys to this is ensuring that we hear first rather than just giving our response and saying what we think in a statement, asking questions. That it's tough. People, it sounds easy. Listen, I've been a coach for a long time and I still want to make statements instead of ask questions. I see
So
you shaking your head, Dwayne.
no, I want to show you something because I've got a project that I've been workshopping and working out, and I this office of mine. You see it; it's a library, it's park radio studio, it's office over here. Though I got a T-shirt shop. I got all kinds of stuff going on. So I made this for my project that I'm working on.
Hey, I love it.
So
Leaders
when you
listen.
said it, I was like, "Yeah, you gotta listen. You've got to listen because there's so much out there that we can't see it all. I've got a room full of books that I haven't read. I don't know everything, and that's why I love talking to folks like you, Jevon, because there's stuff out there I'd never even thought about, but everybody's doing something different, and you can learn from them, and you can learn from those direct reports. They're bringing stuff in you never thought about.
Man, I'm telling you, I had someone telling me about there was an analyst who had just been in the role for maybe 4 or 5 months. They were rolling out a new project where they were kind of incorporating AI into their sales process. They had no idea how to do it. And then they went around, they told the company, sent out an email, I think it was, that they were going to try to do this. This person was not in the department, the sales department, or anything, but someone told him about it. And he was like, oh, this is great. I did this in my last company. I helped kind of run this thing, even though he was an analyst at this company. They're like, oh, really? You're the one person in this organization that has done this before. So come on over. Tell us how y'all did it. This guy ended up running the whole project. Now he's an analyst. He's only been there for 4 months, running the whole project, got them to completion within, I think they had a 3-year timeline. He got it done in a year. Now, if they didn't hear first, if they didn't listen to this person, they would have still been working on that thing and probably would have had to redo it. So not only did he save them money and time and heartache, but he also showed that he was capable of, because they were willing to put down his title and uplift his ideas. And that's something that we can learn a lot from, Dwayne.
So one thing that you're talking about is vulnerability, and I think, tell me if I'm wrong here. I think openness is part of that. There's a vulnerability in being open to the idea of, like, he's an analyst, but he can help us. That openness to collect those ideas. It reminds me of Edward Deming, the old management coach, saying these good ideas can come from anywhere, and you've got to be open to them. And you you won't get those ideas if you don't have a culture of trust.
Absolutely. And it also ties to those micro moments. They only knew that because someone was having a micro moment with that person. They were like, they knew his skill set and they were talking to him about it. And he was like, oh, I've done the whole thing. So that's how important it is to kind of know who you have outside of what their resume says and what they were hired for. Know a little bit more about what they are interested in, their strengths, and their strengths are not necessarily what they are also good at, but also what drives them and motivates them to be a little bit better. So if we know those things, we can also have people like Project Aristotle from Google. We can have them working on these things, give them space and time to kind of innovate, to look at the gaps within our organizations, to say, hey, how can we be better from your perspective? What are you seeing from your level that we need to fix? That is always a good way for us to kind of build that trust amongst the ranks, but also get something from it, that innovation and that engagement we're going to get from that. And it costs us really nothing, right? If they spend an hour to just focus on whatever they want to focus on.
How important is a leader's response? Maybe reaction. You can get a reaction or a response, two totally different things. But how important is a leader's reaction or response to failure or, you know, a mistake to building trust?
It's super important. And one of the things I want to say about failure is failing within guardrails. See, what happens is, as leaders, we don't set the guardrails. Where can we fail safely? Where can we experiment a little bit without risk that is catastrophic to the organization or to our team? If we can set those guardrails and allow our people to just do their thing within those guardrails, it will feel a lot different. So first and foremost, we must do that as leaders. And then once someone fails within those guardrails, allow it and ask. In the military, we do after action reports. At least in the Army, I'm sure y'all did it too, right, Dwayne?
We
And
never
after
made
action
mistakes in the Navy.
I love it. I love it. Hey, we meant to do that.
We're out in the middle of the ocean. Who saw that? No one.
Yeah, we meant to do that. What are you talking about? We didn't. But no, but with those after actions, there's no finger pointing. It's just, hey, what was supposed to happen? What actually happened? How do we get better? How do we move forward so the next time we are actually successful? If we do that within an organization, that is going to give us new thoughts and new ideas, new pathways forward, new options to the problem. And that's where we're missing. We're so focused on finger pointing and blaming and saying, hey, you're not performing at the level, putting people on IDPs, individual development plans, without actually understanding, hey, what was your thinking behind this thing? Or taking Jocko Willink's perspective of extreme ownership and saying, did I do what you needed as a leader to put you in a position of success? Those are the questions and things we need to be looking at from the failure perspective.
There's a story out there that I've read in a couple books. It could be apocryphal. I don't know. It's about this guy who's working for a company and he's working on a project and he completely botches it. And it costs the company like $1 million. Some stories I've seen $10 million. Anyway, he's at his desk and he gets a message. CEO wants to talk to him. So he grabs his letter of resignation, right? He's walking up to the office and he walks in and he sets his letter down on the table and the CEO picks it up and looks at him and goes, "Resignation? We just spent $10 million training you. You think we're gonna let you go?" That kind of response is, I mean, I wanna be in the position where I can write off $10 million, right? "Oh, that's a training expense." But it's that kind of response. It reminds me of talking with my kids when I would say, "Hey, you probably shouldn't run down the alley. You don't walk that well. You probably shouldn't be running." And they wanna run anyway and they fall, and as I'm helping them up, I'm saying, "Now what did you learn? And can you grow from this mistake?" And that's, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but that seems the kind of culture that I would wanna bring to a company, and I think that would allow for a greater trust also. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought that example up because we don't tap into our inner child enough. If we're talking about trust and innovation and engagement and being around as an organization 10 years from now, that's what it's going to take for allowing us to do things, fall down, get back up. Now I wish I can spend $10 million as well, Dwayne. I think we all do. But again, if it is it in those guardrails, well, what was that person working on that he made this failure? It doesn't sound like it was catastrophic for that company. It just cost them money. But if you think about making space and room for individuals to do that and just to try things, you'll be a lot better for it. I mean, a lot of products we use today were mistakes. 3M with with Velcro and all that stuff, just mistakes. But it became something that is usable throughout the world 20 times, the million times over. So if we allow ourselves to make mistakes and happenstance, then you'd be surprised what can come of it. And again, when we think about building trust within our ranks, especially from a learning standpoint, the trust is not coming from us doing things in a vacuum, and it's not coming from a perspective of us acting like we know everything. It comes from a standpoint of us allowing everyone to co-create the experiences that we are looking to design. And just like that gentleman or that person who spent $10 million on training, we can do that as learning leaders. Hey, try to break this thing. How can we make this program more engaging? How can we make it better? Not just those little surveys we do and those checks on learnings, but taking it another level. Hey, what's the goal? How can we apply what we have over here over here? Those are questions we kind of forget to ask, and those are applications that we forget that are possible because we're like on to the next thing too quickly.
Are there any other rules we need to talk about?
Um, I would say that instead of trusting but verify, we need to trust and empower. We need to show people we believe in them. And it kind of goes to that delegation that I was talking about a little bit, to allow people to kind of try different things, but also empowering them, maybe giving them a day in the life. Maybe they're interested in learning what their widget does in the next stage. Maybe they can go over and learn a little bit about that next stage so they can see the holistic picture. So things like that, empowering them to still be a human, be curious, but also learn in that same vein and in the flow of work. That goes a long way for building trust that keeps people engaged and keeps them retained. I'm hearing a lot about regrettable turnover right now, losing people that we really wanted to keep. And it's probably because We never said, hey, step outside your lane right now. I want you to go over here and just learn it and have conversations with this team. See how you think, see what you think about it. Is there any way we can improve it from your standpoint? Simple things like that takes us so far, Dwayne.
Why do you think innovation and engagement are so important then to an
They,
organization?
they are really everything right now. So if someone is unengaged or disengaged, and they could be just sitting there looking at the computer, watching the time go by slowly. But what happens is we are not being productive as an organization, because if one person is like that, there are plenty others. So without productivity, now we're missing the mark. Now we're not making our customers happy. Now with innovation, if we don't innovate, what happens? Our products become stale, our services are no longer meeting the needs of our clients. So that's why innovation and engagement together are really, they're paramount for an organization.
Yeah, I think if you also need to realize if you're not innovating and your people aren't engaged, the competition is. Somewhere out there, the competition is innovating and their people are motivated and they're working on it. And that's just a recipe for finding yourself going, what just happened? And not understanding at all how it happened. Tell me, tell me about Bright Mind Consulting.
Yeah, so Bright Mind Consulting Group, we, as I've been saying, put people first to get results, and we do that through a multitude of ways. So everything we do is centered around emotionally intelligence training. So it could be interpersonal, where we're focusing on communication, we're focusing on leadership, trust, and things like that. Or it could be intrapersonal, where we're working with you on self-awareness. We're working with you on responding versus reacting. We're working on self-management, etc. So we do that through coaching, workshops. I do a lot of keynotes. And then we also can embed within organizations for like fractional chief learning officer services, but not just from the strategy standpoint, but actually helping them implement to improve their talent development programs.
All right. So if there's somebody out there and they hear this podcast and they're like, I want to have Jevon come and talk to me. I want to have his group come and talk to our team. How can people get? I see you got 19,005 followers on LinkedIn, which I'm distracted by and jealous of. That's impressive. I hope to someday achieve that.
You
But
got
how
it,
can
brother.
folks get in touch with you outside of LinkedIn?
Yeah, so you can go to brightmindcg.com and message me right there. You can also call me. My phone number is on that website as well. My email is there. So reach out to us, and we will be sure to get back to you. We will get back to you, not AI. So
Yeah, you
because I
got
still
to.
believe human to human is key.
You have to, clarify that these days. So I'm gonna have you. I want to have you come back on sometime because I was just looking through the five whys framework, and it's one of those things where I'm listening to you and I'm looking over here and I'm like, wait, yoga, what? And then
That's a whole other discussion right there, Dwayne, for
so
sure.
I don't have room in here for yoga. I got a I got everything, and I suppose I could fit a yoga mat over there. We'll work
You
on it.
said your job.
Hey,
I'm jealous of
Mon-
this office, man. That library is amazing.
thank you. This is. I wish I could show it all to you, but there's sections over here that are covered in T-shirts and other books. So it's I work here, so you know how it is.
You're gainfully employed for sure.
Definitely, definitely. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with me today. I appreciate everything you did here, and it's great insights. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to coming back soon.